This evening's Bible reading is taken from Mark chapter 8, verses 31 to 34, and then chapter 15, verses 16 to 22. He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." And then chapter 15 from verse 16. The soldiers led Jesus away into the palace, that is the praetorium, and called together the whole company of soldiers. They put a purple robe on him, then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on him. And they began to call out to him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Again and again they struck him on the head with a staff and spat on him. Falling on their knees, they paid homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him. A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull.
This short mention of Simon of Cyrene, which features in Matthew and Luke's Gospels too, is the only reference to him in the Bible, so it seems a bit ambitious to present a devotion dedicated to him, really. However, even from that one verse, if we take into account the other words of Jesus, there can be a powerful message for each of us to take to heart. Simon had travelled to Jerusalem for the Passover, like so many other Jews had at that time, including Jesus and his disciples. Cyrene, however, was a city in modern-day Libya, and it could have taken him a couple of weeks to get there. When he set out from home, he could not have known how significant a trip it was to be. The reference in Mark's Gospel to his 2 sons, Alexander and Rufus, is significant, as it means that they likely became well known in the early church. There is a brief mention of Rufus in Romans 16. Simon arrived in Jerusalem as a Jew, and by the time he left, he had been the first and only person to literally pick up a cross and follow Jesus. You could argue that he was the very first Christian in that sense. That was the impact of his brief encounter with Jesus, right at the pinnacle of the Easter story. Simon didn't choose to pick up the cross, of course. The soldiers forced him to. Thankfully, we are free to make that decision ourselves. It won't be a literal cross we're picking up, but we choose to bear the cross of Jesus every day when we say that we want to follow him. That sounds pretty tiring, doesn't it? But don't worry. Jesus didn't just say, "Take up your cross and follow me." He also said things like, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." That's from Matthew chapter 11. The story of Easter and all the people that were involved in it is one of hope. Yes, there are dark times in our lives. Things will be tough. We will make mistakes. We will stumble and sometimes fall. But we know that Jesus goes before us. For if we are to follow him, then that must mean that he is leading us. Where is Jesus leading you? What burdens are you carrying that you could trust to Jesus to bear? Will your experience of Jesus this Easter have a lasting impact on your life? Shall we pray? Dear Lord, thank you for all the cross means to us. Thank you that we can take today to remember the power of your love demonstrated in your sacrifice. Thank you too for being there to lighten our burdens and for going before us into the dark places of our lives. Help us to trust you, to follow you closely and remain in your love. Keep the hope of Easter alive in our hearts, particularly in these difficult and uncertain times. I pray that the impact that you have on us will be reflected to the world around us so that more and more people can come to know you. Amen.